Hello everyone, I hope you are having a wonderful day. This is the first video of a full series dedicated to teach music theory. Throughout the course, we will start with some basic concepts and we will quickly move to better understanding of pitch, rhythm, chord construction, voice leading, part writing, harmonic progressions, and much more. So I suggest that you already subscribe, bookmark this playlist, sit back, and let's enjoy an amazing learning experience. In this video, we will learn about pitch, the notes, octaves, and octave registers. So first, let's start with the concept of the pitch. We have to be very careful how we pronounce it. It can be quite tricky. So let's take a look at a piano. I think most of you have seen a piano before, at least once in your lives. The piano has 88 keys. Okay, they are spread between majority of white keys and then a number of black keys. What you will also notice is that the piano has a kind of a repeating pattern, which we will talk about in a while. Okay, so if we look at the keys of the piano, and if we play from left to right, we start to go up. I'm just picking notes randomly, doesn't matter black or white notes. What you notice is that the sound goes from more bass to more treble. So basically it's going higher in pitch. It's in a higher pitch direction, okay? And the way we represent that on the staff is we go from down to up. When we're writing the notes, lower, let's say more bass notes, lower pitch notes would be written more down, and higher pitch notes would be written more up, basically. Likewise, in the other direction, so if we're going from right to left, so we're going down in the pitch, and you hear it's more bass sound, okay? So that's the direction of lower pitch, and when we're writing it on the staff, we put, of course, the notes would go from up to down, representing that it is lower in pitch. What this means is that on the staff, the pitch is represented vertically, okay? Like we said, lower is more bass, higher is more treble, okay? But at the same time, we read the notes like a book from left to right. So if you have two notes that are written consecutively, left to right, you have to play them or read them consecutively. So let's suppose like this. So you see here we went up in pitch, but the two notes were one after the other. And we can have it in the opposite direction. Now, if you see both notes written directly on top of each other, that means that they are played at the same time. So the piano, we have, lots of keys, 88 keys. It can get confusing. Of course, for any starter, they can get lost easily where they need to look at. So the main reference point of the piano is the C4, which is this note here exactly. We call it also the middle C. Now, it's not precisely in the middle, but it is the C that is in the middle area. We'll talk about that more later. And what you see here is I highlighted in this red rectangle those notes, and they are represented down here on the staff. Never mind which clef we're using and that we're using two staffs and so on. Don't focus on that for now. I'm just showing this range and the red rectangle where it is written. And what you notice is that we are filling the staff. The notes are written either on a line or between the lines. But sometimes we have to go outside of the staff, so there is area to even go beyond. And there we add what we call ledger lines, which is like small lines. And you see here we can put as many lines as we need. Of course, at some point it becomes too crazy, very difficult to read and so on. There are some shortcuts in representation, how you write it differently and so on, but we should not worry about this right now. What matters is just understanding the principle. Okay, here you can see the C4 highlighted on the staff here. It's written twice, one on this clef and one on this clef. It's exactly the same thing, so never mind that. So this rectangle area basically spans from what we call the C2 all the way to F6. So from here And here I'm just playing, those are the white notes, or the white keys basically, of the piano. And that was the F6 in the end. Now you say, okay, where do I write all the other notes outside of those? Because we can still play here, we can still play here down. Where do you write those? So basically, yeah, you can extend it further. There's different way of writing it, but that's the entire range of the piano. So it goes from A0, which is this lowest note here, all the way up to C8, which is this very, very high pitch note that we have here. So now let's move to the concept of the octaves and the octave registers. Remember where we were at the middle C, so that's the C4, and you can see a repeating pattern, right? So if you check again, you see this pattern will repeat at those different points if you're starting from this C. And here we map out all the C's that are on the piano. What you'll notice is that they sound very similar, but of course some are more bass, some are more treble. I will play them. You see, they're very similar in their character, let's say, but of course they're completely different in terms of which one is more bass and which one is more treble. Okay, so the musical distance that we have between any two C notes is what we call an octave, and that really applies to any two consecutive C notes. We have an octave between any of the two. So those two, they make an octave, those two make an octave, those two make an octave, and so on. Okay, now if we take one of those octaves and we look a little bit more closely on the keys that are represented there, we have this, and that is the pattern that we were talking about. You will see that the notes, basically the white keys basically are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. We call them as well in French, sometimes French is used in some cases, Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si, and then Do again, so we're restarting anew the pattern again. The black keys in the middle, they might have different names. Just bear in mind that actually any key might have different names depending on the setting, depending on where it is in a scale, or if there's any accidental or adjustment. We should not worry about that right now. So I'm being super simplified here so that you get first the basic concept. So the black keys, we have one between C and D, which is C sharp. Sharp is in the up direction, flat is in the down direction. So this is C up, so C sharp, or D flat is down from D. We have D sharp, which is up from D, or E flat down from E. We have F sharp or G flat, which is between F and G. We have G sharp or A flat, which is between G and A. And then we have A sharp and B flat, which is between A and B. In total, we have 12 notes from C to B. Okay? And they are C, C sharp or D flat, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, and B. And then of course the octave starts again with a C, C sharp, it continues again. So we have really a set of 12 unique notes that will repeat over and over. Of course, this is within Western diatonic music. In other styles of music across the world, you might have scales, or you might have more notes that are present or less notes, depending on the type of music, the context, the scales, and all that stuff. Of course, we're focusing here really on the Western, what we call diatonic music. So we talked that, okay, between any two consecutive Cs, we have an octave, but in reality, the octave is the distance between any two consecutive same letter note. Okay, that's very important. They have to be the same kind of note. So in this particular case, between the E4 and the E5, that's also an octave. Between any two same letter note consecutive, that's an octave, right? So I can take, for example, G sharp here, 1, G sharp 1, and then G sharp 2, that makes an octave, okay? I could take B5 and then B6. That's an octave. Same letter, consecutive. And now we go to the concept of the octave registers. So if we go back to the C notes, the octave register is a concept that sometimes we mix it with the octaves, but in reality, it's a different idea, okay? An octave register is the groupings of notes within C octave. So we're focusing on the C to B area, okay? Here I highlighted them in different colors, so just to highlight, and each one of them is an octave register. Okay, so we're always talking C to B when we're talking octave registers. The piano, for example, has 7 octave registers that are shown fully. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that you see them here. Plus, it has 2 octave registers that are highlighted partially. So we have the 0, which is from A0 to B0. Okay, so that's only one portion of the octave register is there. And then we have the C8, which is part of the C8 to B8 octave register. Okay, so that's the 0 octave register. Of course, it includes all the keys in between, white or black. Then we have this area is for the C1, B1, C2, B2, C3, B3, C4, B4, C5, B5, C6, B6, C7, B7, and then we have here the orphan, which is C8, is part of the C8, B8. Now, the piano, you see, it's a very wide range of pitch sounds. Typically, the piano is the most wide instrument, okay? The majority of other instruments, their ranges fall somewhere in between, whether in the middle area or more on the upper area or more on the lower area. So the piano is the widest. You have some exceptional instruments that can go even higher than the highest notes of the pianos. There's not a lot of them. And then you have some also exceptions that can go really lower than the lowest note of the piano. For example, the contrabassoon can even go lower than this note. But the majority are within the piano. That's why the piano is always the representation that we look at. It's really the most ubiquitous instrument. You can really write any type of music starting from a piano. And that's it for now. If you have any question, go ahead and write it in the comment section. I'll make sure to answer it as soon as I can. If you enjoyed this lesson, don't forget, subscribe for more. I will be posting 2 lessons per week to help you in your learning journey. So I wish you a very fantastic musical day.